You go back. Go now. Go.
All right, we'll get started. Before we begin, this is a reminder that this is also a remote meeting and teleconference using Zoom pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 403-A. Welcome to the Sanford Planning Board meeting of October 4th, 2023. The meeting will now come to order. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that's being said and look at all the exhibits that are offered. Please notify the chair if you are unable to hear or see something. Please know that if any planning board members have potential conflicts of interest of which they are aware, they will disclose the conflict prior to the board's initiating a hearing or an action on an application. All persons speaking will be asked to state your name and address, then proceed. At the sole discretion of the chair, public testimony will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. For each item, the applicants will be asked to describe the project. Thereafter, the chair will ask for proponents of the project to speak, followed by opponents, and then those who are neither for nor against, or who may want to ask a question or make a general comment. Everyone who wants will have an opportunity to speak to the board through the chair. Any questions must go to and through the chair, who will then decide at what point to either ask staff or the applicant to respond. The chair may wait until after testimony has concluded to seek answers to any questions that are raised by the public or the board. Please note that any rudeness, uncivil behavior, clapping, cheering, booing, etc. will not be tolerated, and if these behaviors occur, the chair at his sole discretion may terminate the hearing and reschedule for another date. In addition, the chair at his sole discretion will limit repetitious comments, though it is entirely appropriate for an individual to indicate that he or she agrees with the previous speaker. Prior to closing the public hearing, the chair will ask if there are any new comments. Then the applicant will be allowed to make a single rebuttal in response to the testimony which was provided. Once the public hearing portion of the meeting is closed, the chair will accept no additional public comment. However, a member of the board at the chair's discretion may ask the applicant or a member of the public to respond to a question. This will not reopen public comment. Planning board decisions are based solely on whether an applicant has provided sufficient evidence to meet the requirements of local, state, and federal laws. In this regard, public testimony is most effective when it considers the impact of a project in light of Sanford subdivision, site plan, shoreland, or zoning ordinances, and other relevant regulations. After the board discusses the merits of each project, it will vote on written findings of fact. Since the findings may substantially affect any appeal rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting not leave until the board has adopted the findings for the project you are interested in. After the planning board makes its final decision, any reconsideration by the board must be made at the next regularly scheduled meeting. If anyone wishes to appeal the board's decision, he or she must do so within 30 days. The city's ordinance and comprehensive plan are available for viewing on the city's website and in the Planning and Development Department's office at 919 Main Street. Remember, this is a public proceeding. You have the right to hear and see what is happening, and we welcome public participation. All right, that's out of the way. All right, so let's get started. Public hearing, new business, file number R3-112E-4, 23 Dry Brook Drive. Aaron, do you want to get us oriented before we have the applicant stand up?
Absolutely. So this is an application for an amendment to an approved major site plan and minor subdivision. This is to approve a newly added unapproved driveway and culvert as built and remove the 30-foot shared driveway and easement from the approved plans. So in summary, the applicant has constructed a driveway and culvert to service lot 12E-4 in the Dry Brook Run subdivision, formerly known as the Brook Hill subdivision and the Morrison Road subdivision, which was not depicted on the major site plan and minor subdivision plan approved by the Sanford Planning Board on November 15th, 2006. Instead, so basically there's a shared driveway that's shown on the approved subdivision plan, and instead the applicant has built 2 separate driveways and 2 culverts with 2 stream crossings. The applicant then sold the lot 12E-4 to its current owner, Christopher Knight, who has since been unable to acquire a certificate of occupancy from the City of Sanford due to the discrepancy in plans and as-built conditions. The applicant has received notice from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers indicating that they do not intend to pursue enforcement action on this apparent unauthorized activity, and the applicant has been advised by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and City of Sanford staff that future unauthorized activities may be considered knowing and willful violation of regulations and could be subject to the full penalty of the law.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant here to speak?
Yes, good evening. My name is Carl, can you hear me okay? My name is Carl Beal. I'm a consulting engineer. I live at 15 Deborah Avenue, Sanford, Maine. I'm here representing Mr. Berube and Mr. Knight to request an amendment to this approved subdivision, already approved subdivision by the city of Sanford. Like Aaron said, for an after-the-fact approval of a unapproved driveway and an unapproved culvert that was installed by Mr. Berube. That culvert has been in place since 2008, so it's been in the ground for 15 years. There's no erosion that's occurring. The culvert is, the entrance and the exit have heavy riprap installed, and there's no evidence of erosion anywhere for that culvert. I wanted to add to Aaron's comment, we did apply to the DEP for an after-the-fact permit by rule, and that permit by rule for the culvert and the stream crossing was granted in September 2022. So that's in place in addition to Army Corps basically being okay with the culvert the way it is. The staff has agreed that removing the culvert would create more sedimentation than just leaving it in place and allowing it to continue to be stable and not put any sediment in the unnamed stream. So that's basically our request.
All right, thank you. I'll now declare the public hearing open and open it up for anybody who would like to speak in favor of this change. Right? Anybody in the audience or on Zoom who would like to speak in opposition to this amendment? Right? Lastly, anybody who would like to say anything, ask any question? All right, declare the public hearing closed and open it up for a public planning board discussion. Anything from anyone? All right,
Motion to approve?
we got to have a draft
Just
motion
kidding.
first.
Suggested motion? Yeah, sure. The suggested motion is that the planning board accept the information in the September 5th, 2023 summary report and the October 4th, 2023 recommendation to the planning board, grant the requested waivers, and find file number R3-12E-4 for a minor amendment to remove the requirement for lots R3-12E-3 and R3-12E-4 to share a driveway has satisfied the requirements of Chapter 275-25 and 280-15-4-C.2 of the Code of the City of Sanford, subject to the following conditions. 1, that no later than November 4th, 2023, the applicant provide 3 copies of the revised plans to the planning department. And 2, the standard conditions of approval, number 4, signed recorded plan, and number 9, alterations of plans.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Congratulations, thanks. Right, moving on to item number 2, new business file G30-16 Gilmet Street subdivision. Aaron, do you have any opening words for us, Aaron?
Do I have any what?
Anything to open us
Yes.
up on this?
So this is an application to construct a 10-lot subdivision with a private road extending from Gilmet Street. This will be public water and sewer connections. This is the preliminary subdivision review, so it will need to come back to us for a final subdivision review regardless of the outcome of tonight's discussion. This development is within the single-family residential zone. The applicant has provided several rounds of edits for us, most recently yesterday, and I was able to get comments from most of the city staff regarding those updates that came out of the site plan review committee meeting. They are requesting a few waivers, including the lot size requirement, the lot frontage requirement, sidewalks. Street lighting is up for review by the planning board, as well as there are some concerns existing with the roadway design being not up to local street standards, and that the snow storage is not currently shown on the site, and there are some conflicts with existing snow storage and snow removal activities that the Department of Public Works currently uses the end of the existing Gilmet Street to plow the existing Gilmet Street, and so there's some concerns there. I can go into more detail if you'd like, but
I think we're good.
Okay.
You must be with the applicant.
Yes. Good evening, Rob McSorley with Sebago Technics. I represent the applicant, Ashco Construction, and she said we are basically coming before you for a 10-lot subdivision to extension of Gilmet Street, or Gilmay, or I don't quite get this pronunciation right. It's a 650-foot extension of the roadway. We have designed it to meet the city roadway standards and have a T turnaround at the end. It's been designed to allow for garbage trucks, plows, and emergency vehicles to turn around in. The site was originally reviewed by Kopi Environmental for wetlands and vernal pools. The wetlands are indicated on the plans. There were no vernal pools during that review of the site. We've also designed it to meet the stormwater requirements of the city of Sanford, including the pre-post development for the design storm events. We are asking for some allowances relative to the bulk and space. We have one lot, Lot 6, which is 9,552 square feet. Code allows, requires 10,000 minimum with allowance based upon approval down to 6,500 square feet. We also have 3 lots that have frontages that are less than the bulk and space for criteria for 75 feet. Code allows it to go down to 65 feet. And we have 3 lots. Lot 3, it's about 71.8 feet. Lot 7, which is 65.9, and Lot 8 at 66.22 feet. We originally were before you in June 21st. Since that time, we finished up our development plans, and we have been dealing with reviews by state agencies, more specifically the Maine Historical Preservation, Maine Natural Areas Program, and IF&W. And we just completed up a coordination with all those agencies. They and also Army Corps of Engineers indicated the potential for some resources on site between some fauna or flora and some species of concern. We hired a flyer catcher who is a ornamental biologist to review the site. On their review, they found that all the flora, fauna, and animals didn't appear, the habitat was equitable for their presence on the site. Had a little concern, and we did get IF&W out there on Monday, specifically to address 2 turtle species that were listed on IF&W, and IFW has confirmed that they don't believe that the site warrants their existence either, and they are going to issue a letter to that effect. Historical preservation, there was nothing in the area that was concerned for that. Relative to permitting, we have submitted for permits from MDEP. One was a permit stormwater by permit by rule. That is officially issued because that comes active 14 days after you submit, and it's been 20-something days. We also submitted for approval for a NERPA, or Natural Resource Protection Act permit. We originally submitted for impacts of about 4,800 square feet. We were in consultation with DEP, and they asked us to take another look at it, and we submitted a plan yesterday to reduce the impacts to less than 4,300 square feet, which makes the project exempt from NERPA permitting now. And the plans that we resubmitted to the city reflect those changes. The only outstanding permit is the Army Corps permit. That permit was just a notification, verification application. One of the things they do require us to comment on the couple items that came up in the environmental review. Flycatcher is going to get us a memo, and we'll shoot that over to Army Corps, and that should resolve that issue. We are asking for a waiver of sidewalks through the development. This area of Sanford has no sidewalks on Gilmet or east of High Street in that whole neighborhood has no sidewalks. So what we have designed the roadway is to the typical city rural standard for a roadway, and met that. Relative to the couple items that were brought up, on the geometry, we had looked at the design of the initial curve coming in. That was the curve of concern, and based upon our traffic engineer's review, in the nature of the roadway, there is no concern relative to speed and the nature of that issue. They typically want the radius to be greater. That's what's typically in your ordinance, but our traffic engineer has indicated that it's sufficient based upon the dead-end nature and the low-speed nature of the roadway. In addition, we have posted speed limit signs either side of that curveway to control speed, and have the curb location sign, curb warning sign that shows that there is a curve there. Relative to the snow storage issue, right now, Gilmet, the city goes and they just plow to the end of the roadway and leave it there, and then they back up in the driveways there at the end of the road. What's going to have to happen, well, two things could happen. One, they take, and typically when you come to a radius on a road or whatnot, they take and turn the plow to plow it to the side. And that's what would have to be done to keep it within the right-of-way of Gilmet. Or, as one of the things that we are requesting, we're going to request that the city consider taking over this section of roadway, which would allow to plow through. The snow will go to the sides of the road like it normally does, and then we have snow storage areas at the end of the road by the T turnaround area. And that should address the issue relative to snow storage, because sides of the road get snow. When you plow down it, at the end, you'll make the turnaround and you can put it either sides of the T turnaround. We have discussed the project with an abutter to the south of us, Mr. Ram Bougie. He owns the house directly adjacent to our property, and he has had a couple concerns, and we have discussed those with him. One of the concerns is he lives on a, it's not a right-of-way, it's a reservation for right-of-way that was going to be able to be used in lieu of coming up Gilmet into this project. He has requested that that be released, that reservation. That reservation is granted to the owner of this property. My client has no problem with that. Does want to get, at least for the sewer, I'm sure that the city wants to have them, both for the water and sewer, by easements put in place over the utilities in that reservation area. The second concern we had discussed was, well, relative to the buffer adjacent to his property. I've commented to him that it will be a minimum of 20 feet. Our plans with the clearing showed about 35 feet now, so significant buffer between the one house that would be there and his house. And then he has asked us to consider allowing a connection into the low-pressure force main that we need to construct. We will be constructing that through the middle of the roadway. It will turn, go through one of the lots, and connect into that area of reservation, right-of-way reservation. And he has asked that a connection be allowed for a vacant lot that he owns on the west side of that. And we've talked with him about that. We said, if he pays for the materials, we'll pay for the labor and put the stub out in there. And I believe that has met his concerns and whatnot. He can address that. Other than that, we think it's a pretty straightforward project. Comments we believe we've all addressed, and we'll be discussing that with staff in the following week. And we'll answer any questions.
All right, thank you. We'll open a public hearing, and then I'm sure we'll have some questions for you. All right, so I'll declare the public hearing open. Open up to anybody either in the room or online who would like to speak in favor of this project. Please.
My name is Mary Kubali. I live 12 George Ave, so I am Ron Bougie's neighbor, so our houses are side by side, but my property goes out to where the trees were just cut down. And I hate to say this because I'm just recovering from surgery, so I haven't had a chance to do a survey or anything, but I think when the trees got cut down, they went into my property. And I'm wondering what's going to happen. Are they going to build a house where the trees got cut down in my property? Or do I get the survey, or do they check to see if it got taken over? Or how will that be taken care of? I walked over there before my surgery, and I could see that the trees got cut down too far over, or it seemed to be.
All right, we'll make a note of that. During the public hearing, we'll just kind of hear from everybody, and then we'll revisit some of these issues. Thank you. All right, is there anybody else who would like to speak in favor of the project? Please come on up.
My name is Ron Bougie. I live at 23 Low Green. We had a discussion today, and they seem to be addressing everything that I was concerned about. The only thing he didn't bring up today was when they tap into the sewer on my right-of-way. Well, I'm going to give them an easement, of course, to make the disturbance as minimal as possible, and of course, then they'll build back, put back what's there, That's the only other thing that he didn't bring up today, but if they do everything they said they're going to do, I'm okay.
All right, thank you for your feedback. All right, anybody else who would like to speak in favor? Right, anybody who would like to speak in opposition or against this project that would like to come up, either in the room or online? All right, anybody who would like to ask a question or make a general comment? Thanks, I didn't.
Hi, my name is Rick Southwick. I'm a resident here in Sanford. This is the first meeting I've been to in quite a while, and I'm just concerned that it seems that everybody that's putting an application in puts in an application with the requirements that are
Let me just, I apologize. If you guys are going to have a discussion, could you please take it outside, thanks.
They put in an application supposedly following all of the rules that have been set up by the town. Public Works, the water company, everybody else has all of these rules in place for a reason. And they come in here and you guys are just kind of letting them throw these rules out just so that, like lot sizes, okay? Lot sizes were determined for a reason, okay? Everybody, you don't want people building one on top of the other and everything else. So if you have a piece of property and in order to meet the proper lot sizes, you can only put maybe 8 or 9 houses on it, then that's what should be done. Not give all the waivers and say, well, yeah, okay, you can put 10 houses there because we're going to just waive all of these rules. Just a general observations, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your input. All right, any last comments? All right, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and the planning board will pick this up and talk to it.
The first thing, we can't adopt public roads. That's a city council action, correct?
Correct. The city is not currently accepting new roads.
Any other thoughts or questions, or please?
I'll just going to say this. I guess my thoughts really concern the waiver for the sidewalks. I know this has come up in other projects that we've discussed before, and not having sidewalks when the project is constructed sometimes can come back and be a problem later on. And I would just ask that they try to keep the sidewalks in this project, because it's going to be a lot harder to get that infrastructure after everything is said and done.
I want to echo that as well. It was one of my questions. But then the follow-up to that was a general question as to why sidewalks were to be on both sides of the road instead of just one side.
Sure, I can answer that. So our code states that sidewalks shall be installed within all subdivisions within areas designated as growth areas in the comprehensive plan. So we do have a map within our comprehensive plan that has a line on it that indicates the areas indicated for growth. This subdivision does fall within that area, and so that's the standard. The next few sentences do read, sidewalks shall be provided on both sides of the street where sidewalks are required. The planning board may permit sidewalks on one side of the street or may waive the requirement for sidewalks if the board finds that there are adequate alternative provisions for pedestrians outside of the right-of-way, or that the scale of the project makes sidewalks unnecessary on one or both sides. So I understand that this is up for discussion right now, but when we get to the point of making the waiver, I will need someone from the board to indicate what the reason is for the waiver. So your options there, again, were that there are adequate alternative provisions for pedestrians outside of the right-of-way, or that the scale of the project makes sidewalks unnecessary on one or both sides. I can remind you of that later on, but something to keep in mind.
I did have a question about snow removal. If I heard you correctly, you had mentioned that you would take the snow removal and kind of go down towards the end of the road and use one of the, like little turn areas. But does that cause any safety concern? For example, if a fire truck had to go down, how would they turn around? Or, and I'm asking this because for the road that I live on, we actually, it's like a little T neighborhood. And so that, I don't know what it's called, but that little additional outlet is highly utilized. We actually have them on both ends of our T because they're used between of just a vehicle turning around, or especially fire truck and or ambulance and UPS drivers, et cetera, so they don't have to back all the way out or go into a driveway. So that was a question of concern for me.
If you look towards the top of that page, you'll see a T turnaround that's designed as part of the roadway system. Mm-hmm. And that's designed specifically to allow your bigger vehicles like your plows, your garbage trucks, and your fire trucks to turn around. In fact, we have a program in our CAD thing, I'm not that tech savvy because I'm older, but we can actually take a vehicle and route it through the project, and it will show us where the wheels go and where the overhangs of the vehicles are, so that we can show that it goes through and can make that T turnaround. You pull in, back up once, and go out. And that was actually mentioned during the site plan review committee meeting 2 weeks ago. The gentleman from the fire department was sitting right next to me, and he acknowledged seeing that plan that we had done. So we've accommodated that as part of the project.
And that little outlet, wetlands surround that, correct?
Correct.
So I know I brought this up the last time you were here in regards to the snow removal and that being part of the wetlands. Was there any concern with having like snow piles sit there?
It would
And
go
any
on the
runoff?
bank. It would pack up on the bank adjacent to the wetland,
Okay.
you know.
And then can you just elaborate a little more on the species of concern that you brought up earlier?
Good thing I took notes. Let me see. So, Maine Natural Areas Program, Atlantic white cedar, fern leaf, false foxglove, hollow Joe pieweed, and smooth winterberry holly. And what they do is when they look at a site, they have a lot of resources that are already mapped, and if they're within a certain radius of the site, then they say it's a potential for that to be on this site. A lot of these were on the road that's east of us and down a ways. But like I said, we hired a biologist, flycatcher, to come out and review the site to make sure that those species weren't here. Relative to IFNW, bats, that's commonly comes up. Usually you get a determination from the federal government of no effect because they're looking at their what's called a hibernicular, where they hibernate and whatnot. So unless you're in that general location, then that's not a concern. Blandings, turtle, and wood turtle, that was specifically why we had IFNW out there on Monday, and they confirmed that the habitat wasn't there for them. And then there was 2 butterflies, Edwards hare, streak butterfly, and sleepy dusty winged butterfly. And once again, flycatcher had determined that they were not there. And I think I already mentioned the Army Corps monarch butterfly, the northern long-eared bat, once again, and the small whorled pogonia. Oh, yeah. So that's what flycatcher came out and examined the site for, to make sure that those items of concern or resources, there wasn't a habitat there or they weren't present.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
All right, when we brought this up, there was a concern about the roadway not meeting the public road standards. You talked about what you're doing now. Are we good with that now, or is this still an issue with not meeting the public road standard?
Well, we dealt with the city town engineer, and I believed it was resolved, came to a resolution that what we had submitted was sufficient. And so I guess we can discuss that further if he wants, but
I can elaborate if you'd like.
What's that?
I can elaborate on that. The proposed roadway layout and grading does not meet the local street design guidelines as outlined in the Assistant City Engineer's memo that was dated September 19th, 2023. However, the applicant has added speed limit and curve signs to the site plan and relocated potential hazards to provide an adequate clear zone as requested. The Assistant City Engineer's memo also highlighted the fact that because now that the road does have those signs on it, that is a warranted, it meets engineering standards. However, because the road design itself does not meet local street design guidelines, that is another indicator that the city would not be looking to accept this road as a public roadway.
All right, and then I also had a question about street lighting. I don't know if you covered it already and I missed it, but could you talk to the street lighting?
Yeah, one of the comments was street lighting. When we were at site plan review committee meeting, we asked whether it would be acceptable to have pole-mounted actuated lighting in front of every lot, and it was confirmed that that was acceptable, and that's what's been shown on the plans. Every lot has a pole-mounted activated light in their front yard.
So just to clarify, street lighting is required as part of our subdivision guidelines, and it's a feature that must be approved by the planning board. So staff felt that met the standards, but it's up to you to give your final approval.
Are the pole lights you're talking about, would those come on with standard street lights, or are those residential?
Yeah, they're darkness activated.
Okay, good.
They're sensor activated.
Excellent.
A lot of developments go to that now because of the clear skies and whatnot to keep down the glare and the lighting and all that stuff.
Or any other?
So is Gilmet Street, it's not part of this, is that accepted by the city?
It is.
Do they have sidewalks?
They do not.
Do they have streetlights?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
There's no sidewalks east of High Street in that whole entire neighborhood. One comment that was from the abutter that I was trying to address and whatnot. One of the reasons we just submitted, we went out and had our surveyors go out there and actually get the limits of the clearing that's been done to date. And I didn't notice on the plans, I had just went through that to get an area of that today, and I didn't notice where any of that went off our property. We'll re-look at that, and if we need to replant, then we'll replant, but I do not remember there being any clearing that went off the property, but I can't be 100%.
Any other thoughts, questions, concerns from the board?
Just to clarify and answer your question, Jack, it does not look like there are streetlights currently on the existing Gilmet Street, but the applicant is not requesting a waiver there. They have provided streetlights as per our regulations for subdivisions.
You are requesting a waiver for no sidewalks, right?
Correct.
Now, what's the reason behind it? I think I missed that.
One of the reasons for that too is to keep the cost down. As everybody knows, the cost of housing is just through the roof. My son we had to finance part of a house for him. And because this is a dead-end street that doesn't have any connecting sidewalk, to put sidewalks in, you're going to have to put a curb line in, and then additional drainage is going to have to go in with that, which is going to increase the cost of the housing. So, based upon what's in the neighborhood, the fact that this is a dead-end street, and the way to keep the cost down for housing, that's one of the reasons for the request.
What would you say? I think that's probably essentially what every developer says that comes before us. It's the cost that makes the sidewalks prohibitive, but I don't think our goal as the planning board is not solely to look at the cost. Our goal is to look at the needs of the community, and I think infrastructure, is an important requirement.
It is, but I mean, I'd look at, is the city willing to put sidewalks in the rest of the neighborhood? If there's no plan to have sidewalks in the next 30 years, then, you know,
Well, I think with a growing population and more density, you're going to see more need for that type of infrastructure. It may not be there now, but if we start the process now, it's going to make it a lot easier in the future. This is a problem that we ran into on Patriots Lane. There's no infrastructure there, and nobody wants to put it there now.
it depends. I mean, if the city waits 30 years to put a sidewalk in there, that sidewalk's going to be replaced again. And then who's going to pay for it? The homeowners association? I've driven around a couple areas and we have sidewalks going to nowhere.
When my neighborhood, we have sidewalks. When you pull down my road and it tees off, so essentially there's like two dead ends. And we have sidewalks on one side of the road, and it's not a very big neighborhood, but those sidewalks are heavily used. And I think it also boils down to safety. I think people drive like 10, 15 miles an hour down our road. It's probably as fast as you'll get anyways, but I'm a huge advocate for sidewalks. Maybe not on both sides of the street, but I would certainly entertain at least on one side.
Do your sidewalk connect to another street that has sidewalks?
So when you pull down my road, it's one road, and then the T is a separate road, and that's it. But they do connect, yes.
So this, if he puts sidewalks here, they go to nowhere.
Mine go to nowhere.
You just said they connect to another street that has
Right, but it's a dead
sidewalks.
end. So it's literally like the letter T, and there's two dead ends. So there, you can't go anywhere. So if you come in my neighborhood one way, you're going out the same way you came in. And there's maybe 10 houses total.
If I may, one of the issues on this is it's a dead-end street too, so you don't get that through traffic like you would on High Street or some of the other connectors through the neighborhood. You're not going to get the amount of traffic that you would on other streets. I live on a similar street, similar situation.
So I don't want to change the topic, so.
Oh, okay, so let's just
Yeah.
get an idea from the board where we are on sidewalks. I mean, anybody, we've heard from Lenny, we've heard from you. No, Crystal, I know. Oliver, what are your thoughts?
I prefer on one side. Like my neighborhood also, we have like one side just sidewalk going down. Oh, I'm sorry. We have one sidewalk going down the whole street, and then the other ones we have on the main part of the road though. So it's heavily utilized when people are out. So and it comes down to safety concern to me personally. So I say at least one side.
I'm with Oliver. I think we need to start requiring and not granting full waivers on sidewalks, especially if we're working to redevelop the city and beautify the city. And if we require sidewalks, we should stand firm on requiring sidewalks, at least on one side of the road. That's my opinion.
My issue is the city has shown they've taken no steps to add sidewalks to existing neighborhoods. And so with it connecting to nowhere, I live right in the middle of downtown, in a neighborhood on a dead-end road. There's no sidewalks in the neighborhood. And so we're going to add sidewalks that will go to nowhere, probably forever, unless the city actually takes steps to add sidewalks. I just don't see the purpose of them. You're going to go from being on a sidewalk, walking towards down Gilmet Street. As soon as you get onto the existing Gilmet Street, you're going to have right back into the same safety concern.
I mean, we need to start requiring them at some point. We just can't keep waiving. This is valuable infrastructure for the city. The city's going to have to pay for it if somebody else doesn't.
Can I chime in a second?
Yeah.
Scott McLeod, Ash Cove Construction. I'm the developer of the property. Just a few points, some of the things that I've kind of taken in from you all related to the sidewalks, the streets, the snow plowing. Just backing up to the Gilmet Street, where I'm coming off of Gilmet Street, where the snow question came into play. There's no sidewalks. There's not even room for a truck to turn around. School bus, truck, fire truck, trash truck, there's no way for it to turn around. I'm sure the trash truck probably backs up the road. That is a huge safety issue. Plowing snow, that is a problem. I agree, the guy, you know, they were concerned with the snow. That was why I pointed out accepting the road. I understand you guys don't have to talk to the, you know, and we're not there. However, we've created a T turnaround that is safe for everybody, including Gilmet Street that's behind me. So the trucks could come down, go all the way down through and plow and turn around. Fire trucks, ambulances, school buses, plows, trash truck, mail, all of that. Now, you're talking about sidewalks. So if this is not going to be an accepted road, which we've been talking about all night long, because the city doesn't want to take it, and I might add, these houses are going to add about $70,000 a year to revenue and taxes within this city, that you want to put sidewalks in that in the wintertime would be the best time those should be used, and who's going to maintain those sidewalks in the wintertime? So I understand putting sidewalks in a main street or a heavily traveled subdivision, a lot of roads, it's 650 feet of road frontage, I believe it was. And we're wasting money on sidewalks in an area where I am trying to build affordable homes for kids. I'm building a rural development home for my own son right now. And those houses, they can qualify for $407,000 right now. Believe it or not, that's considered an affordable home now. We start adding sidewalks to this subdivision and start furthering the requirements, then the prices of these houses are going to go up. And unfortunately, our need is homes. Developers shouldn't always be eating the total cost. If the city is generating revenue, then they should look to work with the developer so that we can get homes for our kids. That's my point with it all. So, thank you.
Thanks. Jason, I mean, I'm with you on this. I mean, I think we're definitely split on the sidewalks piece. More in favor of keeping the sidewalk requirement. Our challenge is that the decisions that were made before us, I mean, we just talked about it, they were not always the best decisions. We have roads that are not set up to support the needs of the town, but we can't go back and fix those. We have the opportunity to fix things now. Like, I'm not trying to sway a group or anything. I just wanted to throw my opinion out there too. I didn't just ask you for yours. So I think we need to stew on that for another minute. Jace, did you have another topic you were trying to bring up?
Oh, reducing the minimum frontage. Is there any stipulations or requirements that we have to meet in regards to that?
It's stated in our code that the minimum lot size in this zone is 10,000 square feet by right, or not less than 6,500 square feet with development review. So none of the lots are under that 6,500 square feet. The smallest lot is 9,552. So it's about 450 square feet smaller than the by right size of 10,000 square feet. The minimum street frontage requirement is 75 feet or 65 feet with development review. The three lots that are beneath the 75-foot by right they're still above the 65-foot. So they need they're requesting a waiver, but they are still meeting the stated minimum with development review.
Well, 'cause it's worded weird, where you're requesting a waiver for something that is allowed with review.
Yes, you are the reviewing body, so
Yeah.
you have to review that and approve it.
It's almost like approving something for conditional use, same
Yeah.
idea. All right, so I think the only issue that we are, are there any other issues before any other concerns? I didn't.
I had a quick question about fire hydrants. Where are they proposed to be, are their proposed locations?
There's an existing hydrant where we connect to Gilmet, and we have added one at the end near the T turnaround, as requested. So there's one right,
Does that meet the requirements for the distance?
that's what's been requested by the city utilities, so.
Yep, I believe,
So you want them every 300 to 400 feet. Our roadway's basically 600 feet.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
the typical pull distance.
the fire department did submit their memo that they were okay with the development. They have other concerns about snow storage. That was echoed by the assistant city engineer. If the snow is piled up in the turnaround that is supposed to be kept clear for emergency vehicles, then it's no longer a turnaround. So we have requested that they show snow storage in the final submittal. But otherwise, I believe the fire hydrants have met the requirements.
Thank you.
In the plans that we resubmitted showed snow storage down at the end of the T turnaround.
All right, anything else? All right, so like I said, I think we're split on the sidewalks, and we're split in favor of requiring them and not granting the waiver. Am I accurate in that?
Do we know what the comprehensive plan for sidewalks going, or future plans for sidewalks, like what that entails?
We don't have an updated comprehensive plan as of yet. That would be based on best practices and community engagement. I believe the direction from the state per LD 2003 is to utilize that indicated growth zone as the growth area for development and to use development standards within that growth area. I don't know if that answers your question. There is another provision I wanted to point out in the code that the planning board may approve the use of alternative materials to the required concrete sidewalks with the approval of the Director of Public Works. So you have the ability to waive sidewalks on one or both sides of the street, as well as waiving the requirement for concrete material sidewalks, if that affects your cost.
Can I just jump in for a second? I think Matt Hill has said before that I think he has an interest in asphalt sidewalks. I think he's actually expressed an interest in meetings here in the past because of the cost of concrete.
The Public Works Department prefers the maintenance of asphalt sidewalks. That is true.
However,
They
these are
wouldn't-
not going to be owned by Public Works.
Correct. They would not be maintaining these sidewalks, so that's not of concern.
I think you wanted to address the
Yeah.
sidewalk discussion.
Is the board considering granting a waiver for one side, sidewalk on one side of the street?
Yes.
Can I suggest something else? A lot of communities that we deal with that don't have sidewalks in a neighborhood like this, there is the potential to give or put a donation into a sidewalk fund where the city can use that fund where it's more appropriate than having a dead-end sidewalk.
The council would have to accept that. We can't accept funds on behalf.
I don't believe we have that precedent set up either, but it's noted.
Nor do I think it scratches the itch of the concern.
Trying to
Right.
come up with a solution that will help reduce costs so that we're not putting in additional drainage, driving up the cost of the development. So, trying to get from here to there.
All right, anything else?
I'm just trying to think, what about the raise grant? Would any of that money possibly?
Not a public road.
Well, that's what I was just trying to think of, even though, oh yeah, it would have to be public, wouldn't it?
We also can't speak on behalf of that group either.
It was going to be a general question.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But no, it's because it's not a public road, so it wouldn't apply anyways. I was trying to think of another outside the box, but
Well, you could waive the requirements for sidewalks with a condition for a donation to be worked out with the city staff and
I don't think we have that authority.
I've been there in meetings where that's occurred, and I don't particularly care for it.
So it just gets, it's too much gray area. Okay. Well, my stance is I will entertain sidewalk on one side of the road. But for safety,
And because you said, again, there were standards to be able to waive the sidewalks. One of us has to state, if we were to waive sidewalks altogether, it has to
Correct,
be-
so that would be part of the final findings of fact, which we don't need to do tonight.
Yeah.
But it would be good going into their final submission for the applicant to know one way or the other, whether they should be, allotting space for sidewalks or not.
So Aaron, you discussed alternative surfaces or construction.
Yes, that is also part of your purview. You can waive the use of the concrete sidewalks. So it states that sidewalks shall be provided on both sides of the street where sidewalks are required. Sorry, and then it continues, where installed sidewalks shall meet these minimum requirements. They must be located adjacent to the curb, and Portland cement concrete sidewalk shall be provided in all areas where sidewalks are required. The planning board may approve the use of alternative materials with the approval of the Director of Public Works.
if it's not going to be a public road, why would Public Works be concerned with it?
That's just what the ordinance states.
I'm just going to reiterate, I hate waiving sidewalks. I mean, it is a safety feature, but I also don't like requiring sidewalks just to require sidewalks. We did it on Spencer Hill. It looks silly. The sidewalks go to nowhere. No one uses them. This is a dead-end road. The city hasn't added sidewalks to roads that should have them. You know, it's hard for me to require something of a private citizen that the city hasn't taken seriously. I am really against sidewalks to nowhere.
I respect your opinion, but I would respectfully disagree.
I agree with you, Jace. I mean, if the city wants sidewalks, they ought to work out some deal with these people that want to build subdivisions. Help them.
Yep.
Same with RD zones. They want you to run water and sewer to some of these places, like up on Hanson's Ridge,
Yeah.
which is going to cost the applicant thousands, if not millions of dollars to do that.
Yep.
I think we would need a proposal on how we would handle this waiver request, right? A proposed approach. I don't think we'd vote on this as an individual item, but I'm pretty sure that, I mean, like I said, we're split 4-7 or 4-3 on requiring or not.
Yeah, so we do vote on it when it comes down to the findings of fact.
Yeah. But I mean-
Generally, your precedent is to all agree on findings of fact, but you do technically vote.
Right.
This is a big item to determine ahead of time, because I mean, I'm sure that affects permits such as stormwater, any of the environmental permits, because it increases the area of impervious surface. Yeah. So,
It's going to change your stormwater. Yeah.
Be one thing if the city said, we will accept this road, then okay, put sidewalks in. But the city's not accepting any new roads.
not only is the city not accepting new roads, but they would not accept this road even if they were accepting new roads, because it does not meet the local design standards because of the curve of the road.
All right, well, whether we all like it or not, we've kind of come to this conclusion that with four of us pretty much holding steady on we got to require it. So I don't know that there's anywhere else we can go except to not grant the waiver. Sorry, the public hearing is closed. All right, so I guess we would need a proposal for requiring the one-sided, because we're okay with only requiring it on one side, right?
Want me to make a proposal that we not grant a waiver and instead allow the sidewalk to be constructed on one side of alternative material?
I can make that a condition to tonight's motion. Is there an indication on material? We'll let the applicant decide.
Probably, I would think asphalt would be the most attractive, but if they can find something less expensive, maybe some recycled material or something that would be equally durable.
We go down the path of adding a sidewalk. It's going to be a homeowners association. Who says it has to be maintained? Who's going to maintain it? Obviously, the homeowners association. So, I mean, we can add a sidewalk. There's no ordinance that says it has to be plowed. The city barely plows the sidewalks we have. So I'm just,
So this is making me think about future applicants that come in front of us that will be developed on roads that are not owned by the city. So we'd have to remain consistent in what we decide to do going forward. Even if we take this meeting to set that precedent, going forward, it needs to be a consistent thought process, a consistent decision.
yeah. But how do we enforce the maintenance of the sidewalk or the plowing of the sidewalk? That's, if it's, say, a homeowners association, it's part of their association. It's a private matter. The city can't, codes can't enforce it, can they?
I don't believe so. I don't believe a homeowners association is proposed at this time either.
So
There is a roadway maintenance agreement that would be required because this is a private way.
Yeah, well, if you have a road maintenance agreement you're going to have a homeowners association.
And that goes
Be a
back to our
homeowners
question, who
association.
enforces those?
Who enforces it being maintained and plowed?
The
Actually makes
homeowners association.
But which makes the sidewalk actually useful?
So my thought process right now, sort of backtracking. I agree with the safety. I mean, I keep going back to my own little neighborhood, but we're owned by the city, so it's maintained, it's plowed, et cetera. I know. So when this is privately owned,
It may not be plowed in the winter, but it'll be there probably about 9 or 10 months out of the year and certainly fully accessible and usable.
yeah.
I'm just not comfortable, every time these developments come to us, we grant a waiver every single time. And I think we need to stop doing that.
I mean,
That's why we don't have the sidewalks.
you know my opinion on parking. I hate that waiver, but
Yeah.
in
Well, I think-
in this case, I don't see the benefit.
Well, someone brought up Patriots Lane, but we don't even know who owns that road. So that's a tough one to put sidewalks on. So it's almost like we have to think about this as whatever decision we make now, we'd have to consistently make going forward. And I know I'm repeating myself, but then it's almost like, where do you draw that line in the sand? If it was public, do we say we don't grant waivers because it's a public road? And if it's private, then maybe we could grant those waivers because it's a private road. They would have to maintain it, that they own those costs. The city has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Right now, the law requires it. Our zoning laws require it. They're asking us not follow that requirement.
So then this point forward, every single applicant that comes before us would have to have a sidewalk in these subdivisions. Every
agree.
single one of them going forward.
Unless they meet those criteria for waiver.
Right, that there would be an adequate alternative provision for pedestrians outside of the right-of-way, which might be a trail. Or that the scale of the project makes sidewalks unnecessary on one or both sides.
How can you have how can you have a trail if the standard says it has to be adjacent to the road?
Well, they would be waiving those standards because of the existence of a trail.
If we had a trail, we had some alternative pathway for pedestrians to use instead of having the road, or having them walk down the middle of the road.
10 houses, might I add you, not the rest of Gilmet Lane, not any of the surrounding neighborhood. The only people using the sidewalk would be the 10 houses. And so for me, the scale-wise, it's very hard for me to require it.
So they could put in a gravel path?
That's,
That would be an alternative outside of the right-of-way. Whether or not that fits in the subdivision is up to the applicant.
that's more likely to get plowed.
Just want to point out that the ordinance was specifically written allowing a waiver of one or both sides. Usually when you write a code, you know you can't look at every situation the same. That's why it gives this board a discretion. This is a dead-end street that will have 10 houses on it. This sidewalk goes nowhere. It will connect to nowhere anytime in the future. And the code allows you the ability to grant a waiver. There's a specific reason why it was written
Right,
that way.
and we understand that, right? And that's why we're having this discussion.
Yeah, and that's why
We're divided,
I'm trying to help
obviously.
you get
No,
there.
no, I get it, and we're trying to come through that. I think our challenge here is, we're at polar opposites at the moment, mainly because of the precedents. We have required this for other developments, whether it was warranted or not. But this is a challenge. These are just challenging things for us to be trying to come through, and we're trying to do it right because it isn't this development. It's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when somebody else is on the board trying to make this same decision. So I totally understand why it's allowed, and we're trying to just make that best decision. All right, so based on the discussion regarding the homeowners insurance, the homeowners association, the questionable enforceability of the maintenance, are there any other concerns in that area? So we've heard from Jace. We've heard from Lenny. Are we still split? Okay. This is the last thing we have to get this nailed down, or we can't move forward.
This is critical for them with their permits and the site plan and so forth. Like, they would waste a lot of money if we make a decision and then reverse course.
All right, so where's that line in the sand? That we could make a decision this point forward and every other future applicant that comes before us?
Well, the alternatives, right? A path or
Or
a
the
trail
scale.
that is a built trail.
Which also, again, maintenance.
Requires maintenance, but it meets the intent of the pedestrian safety, 10 houses, get it?
If you live in Portland, you're going to plow your own sidewalk,
But in Sanford, you don't.
Don't.
but it could be headed in that direction.
It's
Well,
not.
that's up to the council, not us. City I lived in, down in Massachusetts, you had to shovel your sidewalk. Up here, they have these little plows that run around. People bitch about the crappy job they do. kids still walking the street.
Yeah. I mean, so, one thing about this neighborhood is walkable, like, as far as you're walking to a destination, it actually attaches, the neighborhood does attach to somewhere. The problem is you walk through the majority of the neighborhood on no sidewalks. And then, so the one area that's a dead end where you're not gonna have traffic both ways has a sidewalk.
What's the speed limit on the road?
Excuse me?
What is the speed limit? Is it like 15?
The local the minimum is 25 typically in a
25.
municipality. I don't know what your code says, but typically they say the minimum. Like in Scarborough, all streets that are not marked are 25.
I believe it was added in your supplementary details.
Every development that's come before us in the past year, we've waived sidewalks. If we're not going to allow it, then we need to modify our comprehensive plan to take that out.
We have yet to have one come before us that connects to any other sidewalks or actually the other developments. You don't want to direct the people to walk in those directions because they're walking to nowhere or somewhere's dangerous. So we have not had one.
I think it sets a really bad precedent when we keep issuing waivers for our laws.
I think a good point is the fact that the city is never going to own this road. The city doesn't want anything to do with this road, so it will be private forever, for all intents and purposes. That it doesn't make sense. Like that could be our line in the sand, The city is never going to own it. Doesn't have anything to do with it.
Careful, because right now the city is not taking on anything.
Right.
They've already drawn the line in the sand,
Well,
saying
that's
no
my
more
point.
streets, so.
And if that's the case, then maybe that's where we could put our little mark in the sand and say, this is where we don't allow the sidewalks. Or in these cases,
I feel like I've been pretty consistent with this waiver, and that is if the sidewalk goes to nowhere.
If
Or-
I can point out that the city does have a typical section for a rural section of roadway that has no sidewalk, that really doesn't have the amount of traffic that you would have on to justify a sidewalk. The same thing happens here, where you have a dead end where it goes to nowhere.
I don't want to sit here until midnight discussing sidewalks.
so what do we need right now?
I think we have it, right? We're at an impasse, right? This is the direction the board is. While we're not unanimous on it, we are
But how divided?
4-3.
For
For
sidewalks.
requiring the sidewalks.
Well, it gives the answer that the applicant needs to move forward.
Yeah, I would leave that up to the applicant if they feel
Yeah,
like that's
then
an
again-
adequate response or not
No.
to move forward.
And the unfortunate thing I hate about this is in 2 months, 3 months, when we get the final approval, the board could be a couple members different. So it's, yeah, I don't know, there's just a lot of risk.
So a sidewalk goes to nowhere, it's going to cost more money for just the sidewalk, additional drainage, more stormwater management. That's what the board would want.
And again, it's not the job of the planning board to consider the cost of the project. We're looking at the requirements that are set out in the city code and city law.
And once again, the code allows the waiver, so.
Right. And, I mean, unfortunately, we've discussed this ad nauseum, and I think we're still stuck on this is the way it's going to be. I would recommend that a discussion with the Public Works to see what alternatives would be acceptable to maybe make this more feasible. I think that the folks that are for the sidewalks or not requiring the waiver are not necessarily stuck on it having to be a traditional road adjacent concrete sidewalk. It's mainly about the public safety piece and then making sure that we have a precedent we can stand on. Because we do, I mean, understand the waivers, understand that we're allowed to do it, I also understand that these are not, in most cases, are not easy ones to make, especially
I appreciate it's a
sidewalks,
different-
obviously.
difficult decision.
I'm sorry?
I appreciate that it's a difficult decision.
All right. Do we have a motion? Well, actually, are there any other discuss?
I have a question. At what would be the scale in which we would grant a waiver? How many houses would it be that we would suggest that the scale would be small enough that we wouldn't need a sidewalks? Because 10's pretty freaking small. Is it 3?
Can't answer that.
Is it 4? This is such a, the purpose of the ordinance is for safety. There is so little safety benefit from this sidewalk. I just cannot apply the ordinance here. Like it is really bothering me over requiring it.
Well, yeah, right. And I mean, when we get to, I don't disagree with you, right? But we are, like I said, we have a majority of folks that they want it. This is what we've been talking about for the last hour. I'm sorry, we can't, I mean, public hearing was over, so we can't ask for more. Well, if you have an alternative for the applicant, I mean, you can offer it to them. I mean, right now, we're just answering the question as to whether we can have if we're going to waive it or not. All right. Please wait till we're done this section. All right. Besides that, we're good?
So Lenny had a motion.
Well, it wasn't a motion, it was just an added,
Oh, an add-in. Oh.
we don't have to, it'll be part of the draft motion.
So we just move on. Again, so we're not doing findings of fact tonight, so it won't be a direct vote on each individual waiver. It will just be a generic motion for the preliminary subdivision as is. So I do have a suggested motion. That's where we're at.
Please.
Okay. The planning board accept the information in the September 19th, 2023 summary report, grant the requested waivers, and find that the proposed preliminary major subdivision application file G30-16 to construct a 10-lot subdivision has satisfied the requirements of Article 6 of the subdivision ordinance and Article 16 of the zoning ordinance, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, in the major final subdivision plan application, provide revised plans that adequately respond to issues raised in the review, which are part of the following conditions of approval. Address concerns raised in the Assistant City Engineer's memo. Address concerns raised in the Code Enforcement Officer's memo. Address concerns raised by the Sanford Water District memo. Address concerns raised by the Sanford Sewerage District memo. Address concerns raised in the Planning Staff memo. And provide copies of permits from outside agencies.
We have a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah. How do I vote on this? Because I don't agree with the conditions, although I don't want to vote against the preliminary approval. I just don't want the conditions.
Then you would vote no.
Yeah.
But obviously, if this motion gets voted no, it sets the developer back substantially. No?
All right. I think we just have to take a vote.
All right.
Any other discussion before we take a vote? All right, all in favor? All opposed? 5-2.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for get your patience.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
All right, so moving on to number 3, file number R20-4, New Dam Road, River Edge Family Campground. Right, Aaron, do you have a orientation for us?
Sure. This is an application for a family campground to construct a campground with 55 sites, each having a deck, fire pit, and picnic table, to construct an office/reception building, community building, pool, and playground area, to allow for a pedestrian/bike trail system through the wooded areas and communal dock on the Mousom River. A new well, underground water supply system, septic disposal fields, and underground sewage collection system, as well as general site improvements, landscaping, and parking. Do you need me to pull it up for you?
It'll work, Aaron.
Okay. I'm good.
Right? To the applicant.
Yep, excuse me. Thank you. My name is Steve Harding. I'm from Sebago Technics. I have with me tonight the applicants, Ryan McCourty and Mike Uraldi from the River's Edge Campground. The project is a campground that'll be a seasonal campground where you will come in the spring. You'll have your site. It won't be a transient campground where you're having people in and out, different groups. Mike and Ryan have actually been at this for quite some time. They started before the pandemic, and then the pandemic came, and obviously, like other projects, it got set aside, and they're back at it today. The total area of the site is 27 acres. It's off New Dam Road. If you could see that as a pointer. And then there's a side road, Estes Road, where the actual entrance to the site is. On the back of the site, there's the Mosa River. There are some wetland areas back here that we are not impacting. And then there is also a small vernal pool here. That vernal pool didn't have enough egg masses to be considered jurisdictional by the DEP, so that doesn't require a permit from them. And as far as the Army Corps is concerned, as long as you stay out of the footprint of the vernal pool, they also don't take any jurisdiction on that. So there are no wetland permits or vernal pool permits associated with this project. The access to the site will be off Estes Road. It'll be two ways into the campground area. The campground will have an office area. There's also a pool and a community building, as well as a playground for common spaces. Two-way traffic, there's a gated access here. We'll have a Knox box for the fire department so they can get in. It'll be two-way traffic up to the office space, and then it'll be one-way traffic looped around through the campsites. It's an 18-foot wide road for 55 campsites. Utilities on the site, there is, an on-site septic system. Mouse here. In the area to the back of the site. There's also will be a drilled well with a pump house and a fire storage tank that will be located in the center of the site. As far as fire protection, we're going to use the swimming pool, which will have about 25,000 gallons of water for the fire protection purposes, along with the dry hydrant. We've worked that through with the fire chief, and he's very supportive of using that. For stormwater, there's an infiltration basin area in the center of the site, and then in the back area here, there's a series of underdrain soil filters, which will collect the stormwater and treat it, and then attenuate the flow outside of it, discharge from it. That system has a DEP stormwater permit, so we've gotten that approval as well. We do show some pedestrian trails in the area down to the river. There will be no motorized vehicles on those trails. And then during the staff review meeting, the abutter to the east voiced some concerns about trespassing, and Ryan and Mike have talked to her, and we've put no trespassing signs will be installed along this boundary, as well as when annually when they talk to the campers about the rules of the park, they're going to emphasize that point as well, that no trespassing, is obviously going to be allowed. Parking on the site, if you count the campsites, two parking spaces, 130 spaces. It was brought up in the staff review that we needed 7 handicap spaces, so we've distributed 7 spaces throughout the site to meet that requirement. We do propose a roadway sign. be located off of New Dam Road, about 50 feet from Estes Road. Understand in some of the staff review that in order to site that within 20 feet of the edge of the travelway, which Ryan and Mike have gone out, there's a shoulder that goes out about 10 feet and then goes into the woods line. They'd like to put it on the edge of the woods line. In order to do that, we would need to work with a code enforcement officer and get a waiver of that. So that we will certainly do that. But other than that waiver, there are no other waivers associated with this project. If we could get approval tonight, we would, there might be some work over the winter, but construction would certainly start in the spring of 2024 and look for a May 2025 opening. So with that, I'd answer any questions you may have.
Okay, great. We'll go through the public hearing, and then we'll, I'm sure, have some questions.
Thank you.
All right, declare the public hearing open. Open it up for anybody who'd like to speak in favor of this project. Can't tell if there's anybody on Zoom, but speak up if there is. Right, anybody who would like to speak in opposition to this project? Right?
Hi, my name's Rick Southwick. I'm not in opposition, but I do have some questions that I'd like the applicant to answer. One, sorry,
Can we just hold on 1 second? We still want to, we just have to do these things in order. So if you could just give me 1 second to make sure there's nobody who wants to speak in opposition, and then I'll be glad to hear what you have to say.
All right.
All right, just last call for anybody who wants to speak in opposition. Right? Now anybody who would like to speak neither for nor against, but would like to make a comment or ask a question.
Okay, question I have is Estes Road is a city road. There's a gate halfway down Estes Road that prevents anybody from going down to the dam down there, the electric power dam, okay? Just kind of wondering where they're going to use this road. The road is atrocious. The town doesn't do anything with it. It's the local residents that live on Brown Road that have to go out and maintain that road. The second question I have is there any intention whatsoever of this project using Estes Lake? Because I don't believe they have a right-of-way anywheres to Estes Lake, and there's an area that is all, not swamp, but all grown in and everything else. And for a few years, we've had problems with people dragging canoes and kayaks through there and everything else. And my wife and I actually do the water quality testing for the lake, and we're concerned about invasive plants and everything else coming in on boats and stuff. So just kind of, we'd like to know if they have any intentions whatsoever of allowing anybody in the campground to use Estes Lake. And if so, what gives them the right to do that? And then as far as maintenance and everything else, and how they're using Estes Road. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before I ask the applicant to address those questions, I'll just make sure there's nobody else that has anybody else that has any questions or comments or would like to make a general statement.
Yes, hello. My name is Omar Zayed, here on Zoom.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Brown Road, Sanford, Maine. I am at the abutter to the immediate northwest of this proposed project. Again, Brown Road. Number one, I'd just like to agree with all the questions and concerns Rick has just brought up. And I would also like to share my own concern that was similar about ensuring no trespassing onto the private property directly to the north and west of this project. Those are my only concerns.
All right, thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak about this project? All right, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and if the applicant wants to come up and address the few questions.
Hello, everyone. Ryan McGordy, I'm the applicant. I'm going to try to remember all the questions through it. The question about Estes Road, the gate that's on Estes Road is owned by the power company that owns and operates the hydro dam. They actually own and maintain the road from that point forward to the old railroad trestle, which is defunct at this point over the river. That small piece of the unmaintained property, I believe the power company does maintain a small portion of that before Brown Road. I don't know how much. We bought the land in the late summer of 19. Have spent a fair amount of time up here, but we wouldn't have as much knowledge of the road as these guys would. Same to that regard as the access to Estes in that cove, which is fairly overgrown most of the time that we're up here. It does look like there's some local access for either a kayak or a canoe to get into that portion of the lake, but other than that, there's no motorized boats that can fit in there. It's rocky outcroppings, it's shallow. You'd be lucky to be able to get a canoe or kayak depending on the water level of the lake. That being said, I don't think there's any concern about bringing in any type of invasive species, plant matter, or anything else being in a canoe or kayak. I would see that more being in bilge water or with a mechanized boat. We don't have any plans to bring any type of mechanized boats or anything through that area. If anything, being at a public street against a public waterway, I wouldn't discourage fishing or kayaking or canoe type stuff through there, but the access is very limited. So I don't know if anybody's seen it, but it's shallow, it's very shallow, it's muddy, and it's very overgrown. So access for that is limited. What other question did I miss? Oh, no trespassing. We're going to address no trespassing on the Valier side of the property. And the opposite side of the property has actually had multiple trespassing issues with Central Maine Power, not Central Maine Power, it's Kruger. And Kruger has already put up signage all along the roadway on both sides because they have a shoulder right on our side of the land as well. So they have posted no trespassing, no ATVs, no hunting, no fishing. They've posted it the entire length from the beginning of Brown Road all the way down to the river. So that's already been put. We don't have the right to post outside, I guess, but we could post on our side if it was necessary. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered everything that was brought up. All right, so pick it up for planning board. Any comments or?
So I guess what's the question? Are they concerned that his guests will be accessing Estes Lake? Is that the concern?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I mean, the campground is not on Estes Lake, or the proposed campground, I guess, is not on Estes Lake. Oops. There is, sounds like there's very limited potential access there, but it's
not going to be people climbing over each other, jumping and splashing in the water and running motorboats all over the place. And
no,
not that kind of
not
thing.
from there.
They just might be sticking their feet in the water or something. And
it's very overgrown.
I can't picture what it looks like.
Right, so setting that aside for the moment, any other thoughts on this project? I guess the biggest thing on the it's not their land to offer. I mean, not necessarily saying they're going to stop people because it's not their responsibility to stop people from using the lake.
It's a town-owned lake, though.
It's a public lake, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know about access on the edge of the road there. I don't know whether that's private property or not. But again, that's not really, doesn't really have bearing on this, right? So trespassing is trespassing regardless. No, we can't.
It is very overgrown,
Yeah. All right.
but no.
No concerns. No concerns.
I can add some information to this conversation. We did have an abutter voice concerns about trespassing at the site plan review committee meeting, and we have received a supplemental submission from the applicant with an added note to the site plan that reads, No trespassing signs will be installed along the eastern property line, and campsite residents will be notified annually that trespassing beyond the property limits will not be allowed.
All right, thank you.
Hello, this is Omar again, the abutter just to the north and west.
I'm sorry, but the public hearing portion of the meeting's over, so it's now just the planning board going through its discussion, and if we have a question, I'm sure we will come out and ask you.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess Micah's question, my only question is on Estes Road. Is that a public road? I was trying to look it up on GIS. Oh, that isn't
It is actually
necessary.
shown on the applicant's site plan that there is a portion of the road that is public per City of Sanford GIS that goes to the intersection of Estes Road and Brown Road, which is also where the entranceway is proposed for this campground.
Okay. More of just a curiosity that we weren't crossing a private road, so, right. I think we're all set for findings.
Motion, suggested motion?
Findings of fact first, right?
Am I rubbing off on you?
Sure.
Okay, this is findings of fact for file number R20-4, the River's Edge Campground. 280-16-7A, utilization of the site. The application is met because the proposed site plan reasonably uses the site.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7N, solid waste disposal. The standard is met because solid waste is proposed to be collected on-site and removed by a private contractor.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7Q, technical and financial capacity. The standard is met because the applicant has demonstrated adequate technical and financial capacity.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
280-16-7S, airport encroachment. The standard is not applicable because the applicant is not proposing any development, so the standard is not applicable.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
Our first group, 280-16-7B, access to the site, 280-16-7C, access into the site, 280-16-7D, internal vehicular circulation, and 280-16-7E, pedestrian circulation. The standard is met because the development will not create hazards to vehicular or pedestrian traffic.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
Second group, 280-16-7F, stormwater management, 280-16-7G, erosion control, 280-16-7H, water supply, 280-16-7I, sewage disposal, 280-16-7J, utilities, 280-16-7K, natural features, 280-16-7L, groundwater protection, 280-16-7M, exterior lighting, 280-16-7O, landscaping, 280-16-7P, shoreland relationship, 280-16-7R, buffering. The standard is met because the applicant has provided adequate provisions to meet the standards.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. All right, draft motion?
That the planning board accepts the information in the September 19th, 2023 summary report and find that the proposed major site plan application file number R20-4 to construct a 55-site family campground with associated site improvements and recreational amenities, including an office building, community building, pool, and playground area on property located on New Dam Road, otherwise identified as tax map R20 Lot 4, has satisfied the requirements of Article 16 of the zoning ordinance, subject to the submission of information and conditions described below. The standard conditions of approval, number 2, performance guarantee, number 6, inspection fee escrow, number 7, pre-construction meeting, number 8, landscaping performance guarantee, and number 9, alteration of plans.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Congratulations.
Good luck.
All right, last item on the agenda, new business, file R13D-1, 67 New Dam Road, Mousom River Solar LLC. All right, Aaron, do you have something to orient us here?
Yes, thank you. This is an application to construct a 20-megawatt ground-mounted solar electric plant with the associated access roads. The application does cover a number of parcels, as was indicated in the agenda, as well as all of the abutters notices that went out to abutters. There are some current concerns with staff regarding the proposed amount of buffering between the commercial uses where they abut residential areas. This would be a decision that is up for discussion by the planning board. I believe the applicant has provided some supplemental information after following the site plan review committee meeting and would be probably happy to speak to those standards. We also have a curb cut separation waiver, which has been required and warranted by the assistant city engineer.
Right.
There you go. Okay, thanks. Good evening. My name is Dale Knapp. I'm the head of development for Walden Renewables in New England. I'm here with Dave Brenneman from Flycatcher, Chris McDonald with BH2M, and I think online we have Ian and Evan representing environmental, permitting, stormwater engineering, and civil and electrical engineering. We've done work in the city of Sanford before, and we're happy to be here to discuss this with you tonight. I think most of the rest of this will come from Dave and Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. Dave Brenneman, Flycatcher, I'm a land use permitting consultant with an office in Yarmouth, Maine. Here tonight representing the Mousom River Solar Project. And I'll start off with a little introduction of Walden. I mean, this is a little summary of some of the projects that they're working on across the eastern U.S. As Dale mentioned, they've been before this board before, and they will also have operational projects in Maine. So they are focused and seasoned renewable energy developers. Briefly, some specifics about this particular project. The Mousom River Solar Project will use photovoltaic panels to generate electricity from the sun. They'll be mounted on single-axis tracker racking systems, which are the type of system that allows the panels to rotate and follow the sun, which makes the panels more efficient. Power created by the panels will be routed through electrical cabling that travels to inverters and transformers. Those electrical components are shown in the lower image there. The power at those components are then transferred from direct current, which is generated by the panels, to alternating current, which is power that can be used on the electric grid. At that point, underground and overhead cabling is used to route the power from those components to the substation, which will be a connection point will be at the substation, and that'll allow the power to connect into the electric grid. All of this infrastructure is all accessed by a series of gravel roads. Here's an overview of the project. Solar panels that are proposed are outlined in red. Access roads are outlined in green. And then the limited disturbance is outlined in blue. You can see the project will have 3 access points. There'll be one that comes off of New Dam Road there. You can see that towards the top of the image near Trout Pond. There'll be another access point off of High Street to the west of Route 4. And there'll be another entrance proposed off of Old Post Road, just north of the Sanford substation where the project's going to be. So a little bit more of the specifics. The nameplate capacity of the project will be 20 megawatts. The developed area is roughly 119 acres. The project's going to be located in rural mixed use in the rural residential zones. Anticipated lifespan of a solar project like this is 35 to 40 years. And one important thing to note, this project was bid into a competitive solicitation with the Maine PUC several years ago. Walden won an award to contract fixed rate on power for a 20-year term. And this is helpful because this helps create stable pricing of power compared to other forms of electric generation that we currently rely on, like natural gas, which is a volatile pricing. The project will be subject to a number of state and federal regulations. I have them listed here. Applications for these, for permits under these rules were all submitted earlier this summer. Briefly, the Site Location of Development Act is regulated by the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. This regulation requires projects of regional significance to be reviewed under a number of criteria by subject matter experts from DEP, Maine Natural Areas Program, Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, stormwater engineers. And the purpose of this whole review and acquiring this permit is to ensure that there's no adverse effect on the environment. In addition, the project does propose some wetland impacts that require a permit under the Natural Resources Protection Act, and also a permit for wetland impacts from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. And lastly, not that many years ago, Maine enacted the solar decommissioning law that requires a decommissioning plan to be developed for solar projects greater than 3 acres. And a decommissioning plan has been submitted with our state and our local permits because that's also required by the town's ordinance. And right now, Walden is anticipating construction start in the second quarter of 2024. So how did we get to this point where we identified this location for this project? Walden looks at the regional electric grid, trying to ascertain where there might be capacity to inject electricity and appropriate infrastructure to support it. The Sanford substation was identified as a potential injection point. Once that location was identified, local landowners were engaged to see if they'd be interested in developing a solar project on their property. And then over time, once enough land is found, and we have a project area, we start to engage with state and federal agencies to identify any potential areas of concern so that we can develop site-specific studies that will help us better determine what concerns might be within the particular project. Some of those studies include wetland stream delineation, surveys, rare surveys for wildlife and plants, cultural surveys, and viewshed analysis to see what kind of effect or view might be of the project. And all this goes into the design process so that we can work towards avoiding and minimizing impacts and meeting those no adverse effects standards. In particular to Sanford's ordinance, the project like this doesn't require the use of municipal services. There'll be no connection to sewer, no connection to the city water, and there will also be the benefit of an increased tax base for the town. Viewshed analysis completed for this project showed that the project area is relatively flat, and the design sought to retain as much natural screening as possible and utilize landscape positions to help minimize views of the project from public locations. Another benefit, solar projects are quiet. Really, the noise generating equipment It really is just the transformers, and those primarily make noise during the day when power is being generated. And then in addition to that, whenever we're designing projects, we typically try to site transformers centrally within the array, so they're not near property lines. And then lastly, part of both the city permitting process and the state process, team to develop a comprehensive stormwater management plan to ensure that runoff from the site is controlled. And then also there's a robust erosion and sedimentation control plan that's developed to protect water resources throughout the duration of construction while the site is built. As I mentioned before, there's a decommissioning plan that's been developed for the project. The purpose of this also meet the city's ordinance requirements, also meet the state standards. And this, the decommissioning plan is, the whole purpose is just so that there's a mechanism for cleaning up the project after it's done. So either if for some reason it stops generating power, or at the end of the useful life, or if the lease is expired or terminated. And the cost of this is updated on a periodic basis by a knowledgeable engineer. And the decommissioning costs are fully funded from the start of construction, and they're updated as needed based on those reviews. And just briefly, we'll touch on some of the benefits for the local community. Walden has a typical benefits package that they will collaborate on with the city of Sanford. Yearly per megawatt payment with an escalation over time that will help. As I mentioned before, there's an increase to the tax base, and there's no municipal services that are used. And also, Walden tries to use local contractors as much as possible. On the environmental side, development of the project will incorporate pollinator gardens within the project area to help increase local ecosystem health and diversity. The project's been sited on previously disturbed areas or partially developed areas. And also, the viewshed impacts show that there is minimal views from public locations, and throughout the design process, we sought to utilize natural vegetation as much as possible. And development of the project helps Maine move towards its renewable energy goals, by 2030 and 100% by 2050. That.
All right, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the room or on the online that would like to speak in favor of this project? Right, anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this project?
Good evening. My name is Steve Cabana, and I'm a resident of Hemlock Drive in Sanford. Although my property on Hemlock does not abut the proposed area or a portion of the proposed area, I do live at the other end of the cul-de-sac, and I do have concerns. We already have an existing solar farm on my end of Hemlock Drive, and I would hope that the planning board and the city, when looking at proposals for solar farms, would not just look at the particular proposal in front of you, but look at the number of solar farms that have come up in the city, and some have been approved and maybe not built yet. Many have already been built. My concerns in respect to whoever did the solar farm that abuts my property, I will say that I think were considerate, at least of my neighborhood, because it sits back a good distance from the property lines. But as I understand the code, they could be as close as 10 feet to my property line, which means the other people on the other end of Hemlock could have solar panels as close as 10 feet to their property line. if you're going to go forward and allow solar farms and 119 acres of land, that's rather significant that we're giving up for the next 35 years that could possibly be turned into housing units, which there is, I just read an article today, I believe there's a shortage of about 80,000 housing units in the greater York County, Cumberland County areas. That's quite significant. So 119 acres of land could produce quite a few homes. I know that has a lot of other impacts. I would also hope that moving forward with this or any other project, that there be some stipulations in place that the soils be tested every so many years to ensure that these solar panels are not causing any harm to the grounds, because 35 to 40 years from now will be too late. I do have concerns that even though there's upfront money to decommission these, will it be enough? Will these people be around in 40 years? We don't know all these things, and I know they need to go in certain places. I just don't think that another one right on the opposite side of my subdivision, which is the Oak Ridge subdivision, is warranted. If it's going to be, I hope you will have stipulations that they have to be at least 100 feet off of any single-family residential property line. We should not have to have these right in our backyard. I'd also think that maybe anything that's deemed rural residential should just be, should be off guards or off limits to solar fields. The mixed use, I can't speak for that, but rural residential, the term is residential. That's kind of the key thing in there. I know rural residential does allow for more than just residential, but again, I just hope you take into consideration there are a lot of solar fields in Sanford already. Sanford is more than just a community to dump all the solar panels in. And we need to look in the totality of how many we are allowing to occur. Because there's no turning back on this for the next 35 to 40 years. So again, those are my points that I hope you would take into consideration when discussing this as a committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak against this project, online or in the room?
We did receive a comment via email.
Would you like to read it into the...
I can read that into the record. This was a comment received via email on Friday, September 15th, 2023. It reads as follows. I am concerned about the local wildlife in this area. When the solar facility went in down the road, we started to see more wildlife on our property and the property this proposal is for. Some of the species we have seen recently include bear, coyotes, fox, deer, possums, raccoons, and most recently, cottontails. The property next to mine went through the process to put in a road, and the owners were made to change their plan last minute to join their driveway with mine to, quote, limit the removal of trees and minimize the impact on traffic, unquote. This made the owners choose to build in a different community. This was for a single-family residence, and only a few trees were going to be removed. Now there is a plan to severely disrupt a natural habitat for so many animals, including a prime habitat for cottontails, and also an area that floods in the spring and is home to many migrating birds. This is in direct conflict to what the planning board stated when my neighbor wanted to remove a few trees for a private driveway. I am concerned that the town is too willing to allow natural wildlife habitats to be obliterated for a solar facility under some guise of clean energy and protecting the environment. In allowing another solar facility so close to the one down Route 4, the wildlife will once again be displaced. In my opinion, this is in direct conflict and will harm the wildlife and our environment, not help it. Sincerely, Samantha Cole.
All right, thank you. Last call for anybody who would like to speak in opposition. All right, anybody who would like to speak, ask a question, make a comment? Right, I'll declare the public hearing closed and pick it up for planning board discussion.
Aaron, do you happen to know how many solar farms are currently in Sanford? Feel free to give a rough estimate. Is it more than 5?
That is a great question. I am not sure. I know we've had some extensions for solar facilities that will be constructed, but since starting, this would be my first official application on the solar facility, so I'm not sure what is existing.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know we have a handful of them that are pending to start, but
That have already received approval, correct? Yep.
any other?
So in the presentation, they said it was undisturbed, I guess previously disturbed land. Do you know, can you point out on the map what's going to be deforested and what's already been disturbed?
So if you're familiar with the portion, I guess, off New Dam Road, it was a turf farm for a number of years. It's been managed for timber pretty regularly on a cycle of about every 10 years. That's the same for the area adjacent to Old Post Road. The Jeunesse property used to be a small quarry, borrow pit, and the same on the property. So it's been actively managed for either borrow, turf, or timber for decades.
Is this Ben? Can you bring that, is that map available? Thanks.
Be a little more specific, areas to the area shown in the plan, to the east of Trout Pond. That's the turf farm area. A portion of that's been turf production, and then about half of that area was stumped and grubbed. In the last 2 or 3 years, for potential staging of that turf farm. A lot of the debris and material now. And then, as Dale mentioned, the portion of the project that's to the west of Route 4, all of that has been managed for timber or used for portions of it now are currently forested. Utility line currently run through. Minimal clearing would be required for development of the project to the east side.
To satisfy your question?
Are there any concerns about this being in a rural zone?
We've
Sorry.
already approved them for rural zones.
I should have mentioned, though, in my orientation that it is technically a conditional use in the rural residential zone, so that will be up for approval by the planning board.
All of it or some of it?
Just a portion of it. I can pull it up if you guys want to. It's sort of the southwest corner, I would say.
This is the zoning line right here.
It's not shown yet. Hold on. There you go. So that orange line there.
So everything.
Oh, my apologies.
Everything to the east of the orange line is rural mixed use.
Sorry, I'm you.
Were there any conversations with other abutters that have like a consensus of the solar farm being proposed for development?
I think that was all we got, were
That was
these
it?
two. Yeah.
That was the extent of it. Did you guys have any additional conversations with any abutters?
We did hold a public informational meeting,
Okay.
as we're required to do, for filing the site law permit. So we did have conversations with a number of butters along Old Post Road, Old Post Lane, answering kind of general questions about where the facility would be sited, what the equipment would look like or sound like. You know, most folks are fairly familiar with it. They were more interested in just knowing where it was.
Okay.
Just for clarification, and maybe this is more of a question for Aaron, the concern about setbacks, this is actually 30 feet's the requirement, correct?
So 30 feet is the requirement for the rural mixed zone for construction. However, the minimum vegetated area for the side, rear, and rear on a non-residential use is 20 feet. So the applicant has shown 20 feet of a vegetated buffer on the perimeter of the parcels within the rural mixed use zone.
So the buffer has to be 20 feet, but you cannot start construction for an additional 10, correct? Am I hearing that right?
Correct. I believe fences are allowed within that setback area. And then additionally, the fire department has requested a 10-foot defendable barrier on the exterior side of that fence, so that in the case of a fire, they don't need to go inside the fence line. They can stay on the outside of the fence.
Okay, so per that instruction or guidance, you have to have 20 feet of vegetated buffer plus at least 10 feet open before a fence.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was clear. All right. Do you have something?
Just wondering if there's anything we have to consider for the conditional use piece of it.
I don't know that there is.
Was there, sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, because if it was fully intended for being in rural residential, it wouldn't be a conditional use.
Who are you guys working with for your pollinator yards? You working with NRCS?
For the plant species we place under the panels.
Pollinators.
Yeah, so we're planting a native wildflower mix under the panel.
Are you working with anybody to do that?
New England Wetland Plants has a mix that's fairly commonly used in facilities, so that's usually what we place.
I know NRCS does have grants for that. I don't know if
Well,
you guys are,
We're responsible for planting it, so we'd be paying for it as part of the project, but if the NRCS wants to give us some free seeds, I'll definitely look into that.
well, they won't pay for the whole thing.
Sure. No, we've got actually a project, sorry, it's sort of a sidebar in Wells. And I should have mentioned it earlier, you know, one thing that we're doing differently, Walden is moving into the space where we build, own, and operate these facilities ourselves. We're building a 20 megawatt in Leeds right now, and we plan to build this project ourselves as well. Sorry, a little off topic.
were there any concerns for endangered species or wildlife or anything? Gonna need you to step up to the microphone, sir. Thank you.
We consulted with Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife early in the design of the project. They did raise concerns with a number of potential habitat for several species that are either state concern or listed under the Maine Endangered Species Act as threatened or endangered. All of that information is included in the application, and then we also developed did specific studies. In a number of cases, species were not determined to be present, and in certain cases, there was some potential habitat that was identified, and we've included some avoidance and minimization measures to IF&W, and all of those plans are currently being reviewed by the department.
Okay, thank you.
Just wanted to speak to Steve's concerns regarding setbacks and locations. I know the city is going to be doing a major rewrite on their comprehensive plan over the next few months, and that's probably the best. If that's a concern, you should, I would encourage you to at least be part of those discussions and at least be informed with the planning department.
All right, any other thoughts, the planning board? Are we good on the proposed buffering as it is written now? All right, do we have findings of fact?
Okay, findings of fact for file number R13D/1, Malsom River Solar. 280-16-7A, utilization of the site. The standard is met because the proposed site plan reasonably uses the site. 280-16-7N, solid waste disposal. The condition is met because the solid waste is proposed to be collected on-site and removed by a private contractor. Sorry, I just read this both together and you're supposed to vote individually.
Oh. Motion to approve?
Second both,
All of them?
Any discussion?
as individuals.
As individuals.
All in favor? 7-0.
Thank you. 280-16-7Q, technical and financial capacity. The standard is met because the applicant has demonstrated adequate technical and financial capacity.
Motion to approve?
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
This is the first group. 280-16-7B, access to the site. 280-16-7C, access into the site. 280-16-7D, internal vehicular circulation. 280-16-7E, pedestrian circulation. The standard is met because the development will not create hazards to vehicular or pedestrian traffic.
Motion to approve?
second,
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
Group 2. 280-16-7F, stormwater management. 280-16-7G, erosion control. 280-16-7H, water supply. 280-16-7I, sewage disposal. 280-16-7J, utilities. 280-16-7K, natural features. 280-16-7L, groundwater protection. 280-16-7M, exterior lighting. 280-16-7O, landscaping. 280-16-7R, buffering. The standard is met because the applicant has provided adequate provisions to meet the standards.
Motion to approve?
second,
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
Group 3, 280-16-7P, shoreland relationship.
Sorry.
That's okay. Shoreland relationship. 280-16-7S, airport encroachment. The standard is not applicable. The applicant is not proposing any development, so this standard is not applicable.
Motion to approve?
second,
Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Right, last finding. Okay, so now moving on to the draft motion.
Correct. That the planning board accepts the information in the September 19th, 2023 summary report, grant the requested waivers, and find that the proposed major site plan and conditional use application, file number R13D-1, to construct and operate a 20-megawatt ground-mounted solar electric generation facility on approximately 119 acres of privately held lands located south of New Dam Road and west of Old Post Road and either side of Alfred Road in Sanford, has satisfied the requirements of Article 13 and 16 of the zoning ordinance, subject to the submission of information and conditions described below. 1, that no later than November 4th, 2023, unless other arrangements are made with the planning director, the applicant shall provide 3 copies of revised plans and documents to the planning department. Actually, if we're not proposing any conditions, I believe we already have these. So, Number 2, standard conditions of approval. Number 2, performance guarantee. Number 6, inspection fee escrow. Number 7, pre-construction meeting. Number 8, landscaping performance guarantee. And number 9, alteration of plans.
Motion to approve?
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0.
Good luck.
Congratulations. Thanks.
Welcome.
All right, moving on to planning director's report.
The Code Enforcement
Acting
Office is
planning director.
currently closed due to a widespread illness. Please stay safe out there, everyone, and mask up if you are feeling symptoms.
Right? That's it?
That's it.
All right. Quick communications. I know Crystal wants to bring something up. Appreciate everybody getting, I mean, this is why we're here, right? If we all stood up here and agreed on everything, you don't really need us. So the fact that we can have the discussions and kind of get through some tough questions, we don't all agree, we're not all leaving happy, neither are they. So it means we're doing the right thing. So agree or not, yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
That's why we're here.
All right, so open up to anybody else. Crystal, you had something?
Yes, so recently I had the opportunity to sit on a neighboring town's planning board. And I wrote a little something because I was very...
Just a clarification, you sat in and listened, not on a board.
Yes,
Okay.
Thank you for that
That could be a
clarification.
problem.
I was observing and observant. So this encounter compelled me to reflect on our own Sanford Planning Board, on how we not only interact with and represent our community, but also in the manners in which we conduct ourselves up here. And both individually and as a collective. So after much reflection, I can say with utmost confidence, what distinguishes our planning board is the shared ability to approach every individual who appears before us with grace, fairness, professionalism, and above all, respect. Therefore, I want to take this moment to publicly recognize and highlight the extraordinary work each one of you is accomplishing in honoring and volunteering duties that accompany being a part of this board. So it's huge. So great job, everyone. It goes beyond the decisions we make. It encompasses the manner in which we make them. With that, I'm very proud of the positive reputation we as a planning board have built over the years, especially this past year. It is important to recognize that these efforts are purposeful, achieved through thoughtful leadership, genuine partnership between not only the planning board members, but also extending to the planning department, municipality staff, and numerous others. You all know, everyone knows who they are. True empowerment emerges from a shared vision, mutual respect, and a collaborative spirit. Together, we have cultivated an environment where every member of this board and the planning department can succeed, where applicants and municipal staff have faith in our competence and dedication, and where members of our community feel comfortable to come before us. And I think that was really showcased tonight. A planning board serves as the agents of a community's future, balancing the interest of developers, residents, and the municipality, ensuring that the community grows and evolves in a way that is sustainable, functional, and beneficial to everyone involved. As planning members, our roles are not always easy, as we are entrusted with making decisions that are profound and hopefully lasting and positive impact on our community. And I'm sure we can all agree that while some decisions are straightforward, others can present significant challenges. I sincerely hope that anyone who has addressed this board in the past, as well as those who did so today and in the future, experience a warm welcome. We aim to create a friendly atmosphere where individuals perceive our genuine interest through active listening and understanding, especially in the questions we pose. Our objective is to achieve sincere and thorough comprehension, ensuring decisions are well-informed and considerate of all information presented to us. In closing, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each of you, not just the planning board members, but also the entire planning department, code enforcement, city engineer, and many more. Your commitment, your professionalism, and your dedication are the driving force behind the success of this planning board. And may we continue to foster an environment where our community feels heard, respected, and confident in the extraordinary work we all do. So, huge round of applause to everyone, because that was really eye-opening to sit on, sit, not on the board, but an observant of another planning board, and it really shed some light into what a great job we do collectively.
Are you suggesting that the other word was not what you just mentioned?
Sounds like it's the opposite.
It was very much the opposite. I was not pleased. You can pay me later, Lenny.
All right. Thank you for that. Anything else?
Yes, one last thing. I know,
Had
as
your
if
neck
I didn't talk to him. I know. So I just want everyone to be aware that on 10/16, I will be out having surgery on my neck. I will be out for 8 weeks, so I will not be at the 18th meeting, which we have to figure out. But anyways, I will be attending meetings via Zoom for the weeks following until 12/12, my approval date to come back into public and society.
All right. You're done.
Hit the gavel.
Anything else? Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor? 7-0.
Perfect.
That we need.